Um, uh, what I what I've realized about paradoxes is that they are trigger points that lead us to that suddenly stop us in our tracks and make us think about anomalies in logical thought, and there is a sudden is it audible what I'm saying?
Can you guys hear?
Okay. And there is a certain um, and because of that sudden logical anomaly, it makes us want to solve the problem immediately. This problem solving is incentivized, yeah, by relation, because it has a fitness consequence at the end of it. So paradox plays that function, and on further observation and further delving into the paradox, we always find that the thesis and the antithesis becomes a synthesis. On further delving into the paradox, we start realizing that the paradox was only a certain illusion. With most paradoxes, we at least have historically realized that the paradox was only the illusion, and when we go deeper into it, we just realize that the paradox was only a trick in the question, in the framing of the question itself. It is a door that opens up a certain amount of critical thinking. So that's what Theseus was for the film. The title was only an invitation to engage and delve deeper into what lies beyond. And I was really happy to hear that the introduction that you just gave. That was the intention of the narrative. The intention of the narrative to have simple layer on the forefront with dilemmas and paradoxes which are very simple in their narrative forms, but are also an invitation to solve them deeper and go all the way to trying to resolve problems so creatively. So coming back to the question that you asked, what I started realizing is that there are two things happening simultaneously, and they're not paradoxical. One is the continuum of information that is being carried forward with each passing generation of cells, with each passing generation of genes, with each passing generation of entities. So the information is being handed over from one generation to another. So there is a continuum of that essence, that information, and the physical material, which is the structure, which is the material that is coming together to create that information. That structure evolves, but the material keeps changing, keeps getting rejuvenated. So similarly, in the now coming to your question, the film, I feel there is a continuum of the essence that keeps continuing and keeps evolving and keeps building upon with the discourse going public and with everyone adding their interpretation onto the film. The discourse only grows and it only evolves larger. And the whole keeps on going, evolving, but the essence of the whole forms a continuum right from the time it started. I mean, Alia clearly at that point of time is, is very conflicted. So even though she's saying that there is the number of people liking her work is no validation of the artistic relevance of her work. We can also suspect that she does not really truly believe that. She is participating in an exchange, in a dialogue, and she's and it's very clear that there is some relevance to community participation of a work, and I feel similarly. I don't think that I'm working in isolation. I'm trying to find my role. I'm trying to make my role relevant and trying to make myself of use to the community, to make my own existence of some relevance. So it is of course necessary for me to uh, to to uh, to find a resonance with a number of people. But having said that, that is there is a balance, and that's what the film is about, and that's the age old question of the subjectivity of the experience of beauty. And I've spent my entire life, like most artists I know, in trying to engage with that riddle of whether we can arrive at an objective measurement of the experience of beauty. While making the film and in trying to delve into Alia's mind and her story, I did find some really beautiful, wonderful answers, but they came from unexpected places. They came from neuroscience. They came from neuroaesthetics, and the work that Samir Zeki and V.S. Ramchandran have been doing in trying to understand what the evolutionary function of beauty is in the first place. So I think again, I mean, this is an invitation. What Alia is saying in the film and what she's going through in the film is of course reflective of me as an artist, but is also an invitation to delve deeper and come to that discourse.
Right. But if I were to bring beauty down into art, for instance, and to a large extent, art always seeks validation to a point where when it's not given, a lot of artists have, sort of died frustrated in some form or the other. What if this movie came out and it wasn't liked by people, or it wasn't watched by so many people, but at least it wasn't patronized by as many as it has happened? Would that have affected you deeply?
I would imagine it would have. It would have affected me at some level, at an emotional level. Maybe I would have used everything I'm equipped with. I've used all the information at my disposal. I would have used all the knowledge and thought and science and at my disposal to try and argue that emotional response out, argue the emotional response of not having found relevance, not having been found relevant by the community would have been hurtful at an emotional level, because that's again what we are evolved in an environment where social validation has fitness consequences, has life and death consequences, and hence we have very strong warning signals of pain and hurt that warn us against not being found relevant. So I would have had the same signals. I would have found that pain. I would have found that hurt within myself, which I would have had to try and deal with reason, and would have been a difficult journey. I think we were just talking about it right now, that I feel that we are at a very interesting cusp in time right now, in some parts of the country at least, where some of us have had the privileges, not the whole country. I can't even begin to speak of more than a very small group of people in the whole country, but some of us have had the privilege of the inferences of modern inquiry, and we are at a very interesting time when everything, all exchange is going back to its original purpose. Caravan, for example, as a magazine, should not have been an exception. Should be the mainstream, because that has been the original purpose of a magazine. That has been the primary purpose of the magazine. Ship of Theseus, similarly, I feel, as a narrative piece, as a piece that inquires, stimulates intellectually, emotionally, was the original purpose of cinema. It should not be this exception. It should be why we go to cinema. I mean, I keep getting asked, why have why do you have a title that nobody will immediately understand, or why do you have a film that is not extremely easy to access? And I said, well, that is the original purpose of literature and cinema, to engage us with material that we are not already exposed to, that we have not already resolved, and that I feel has been the original purpose. And now a lot of us are finding ways to go back to the original purpose. Similarly, in the community, the idea of united artists and filmmakers coming together and putting culture out and making and using culture to start trigger off discourses. These were the original purposes of all these exchanges.
Coming to you, Kiran, in the sense of the kind of response that we have noticed so far, and I'm sure it's a film that's going to grow in due course of time. One of the sense that you do get from a lot of people's responses, and especially from the film community, is that they always believe, and this has happened in the past with you and your films as well, both Delhi Belly, where you were the producer, and with Dhobi Ghat, is that, oh, this can be made, and if this becomes commercially successful, then we can try out ideas which are similar in nature, which are perhaps as introspective or as completely oddball as Delhi Belly was. Do you think that's one of the reasons why the film community gravitates, or at least a certain segment of the film community gravitates, hoping, because now since Delhi Belly, I met a lot of screenwriters in Warsaw who say this story is in the Delhi Belly zone. And quite obviously Delhi Belly made that possible, like say a Go Goa Gone or whatever. I mean, there'll be movies that can be then sold in the name of a film that was commercially successful. Do you think that's one of the reasons, or do you think that has been achieved by Ship of Theseus so far, that tomorrow, whether Soham is around or not to take that call, somebody else would and say, this is like Ship of Theseus, this made that kind of money, and it's made that many people think, and hey, let's make it.
Yeah, I certainly think it'll act as a precedent. I found with all the films that we've made, like you said, it was always a big risk to take at that time, and there was nothing before that to suggest that it could be successful. And as much as Anand says that the purpose of cinema is to start a dialogue, to educate to some extent, it's an art form really, more than just entertainment in the empty sense of the word. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and the cinema that we'd like to make doesn't always fit into that business model. And a precedent like Ship of Theseus or Dhobi Ghat or Delhi Belly or Peoply Live are very useful for producers and directors and studios as reference points, because even when you go back and you look, we actually had no inkling that Peoply Live could make 35 crores at the box office. I mean, that's a colossal amount of money for a film about starving farmers. I mean, who would have thought anyone would go to the cinema? It happened to be very accessible in its content. It was wonderfully made, and it was, though the humor was dark, it was funny as well. It was a satire, but none of us could have projected that kind of figure. So unfortunately for us, whatever we do becomes a sort of a first step in some direction, and so Ship of Theseus is always going to be different than say a Delhi Belly. Delhi Belly will be different than Dhobi Ghat. So every time we're kind of charting a course in new waters, and it's difficult. And I think one of the things that we really have to start doing if we want to continue to make cinema that's relevant, interesting, pushing the envelope a little bit, is to focus a little bit on how to create distribution and exhibition models that are different for this kind of cinema. Because today, you can't expect Ship of Theseus to compete with, say, a Chennai Express or a Dabang or anything else, because we don't have the budgets for marketing. And we've done a very considerably a big amount of money for 4 days for a film like this. We've done 30 lakhs for 4 days. But you compare it with 10 crores for the first weekend of D-Day. So, a multiplex will always prefer to have a D-Day or a whatever, Ramaya Vastavaya versus our film. So, until we actually create ways in which we can show these films without it being a question of what is the weekend figure, because there are films that you make purely because we want to engage with art, with questions, with understanding life better. So that's something that we have to do in the long run, I think. I feel that cinema has several purposes, and they all they're not conflicting. That sense of amazement that someone's, the opening chase sequence in Casino Royale or something has its purpose. It gives you the thrill that you would probably have if you went on a roller coaster. And Ship of Theseus has its own purpose. And I've been always a very strong proponent and supporter of different kinds of cinema coexisting and getting their space at the cinema, because when cinema was first invented, when it first was discovered, so to speak, I mean, just the wonder of watching everyday life when you see man with a movie camera Ziga Vertov's film 100, whatever, 80, 90 years ago, you still feel, you can imagine the amazement that just watching real life in front of you. And that's just been multiplied so many times in our lives now with all the things you can do with Pacific Rim and, whole worlds colliding. So I feel that kind of cinema has its space and has its place in our lives, and I don't think you can take away from that. I think something like Anand's film gives you a different kind of thrill, and that's the amazing thing about cinema. It can start conversations of such a different kind.
Right. But even the explosive kind of cinema can be introspective in some forms. That is being like Christopher Nolan would be a good example of. The Matrix would be a great example. So there is that possibility as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and when I went to film school, actually we had to write a paper on, Gambler, Govinda's Gambler, and films that I would not have otherwise watched. But it sort of forced you to look at alternative spaces, or at least other ways of looking at what popular culture was doing in a particular way. Right. The issues the way it was handling issues, handling character, and looking at what culture is doing at that time.
Right.
So I think every kind of cinema starts a conversation.
So जब आपने स्क्रिप्ट सुनी या जब आपने फिल्म के बाद भी do you have long philosophical discussions with this man, because he can be quite irrepressible in terms of the conversation? क्या आप घंटों तक बातें करते थे फिलोसफी के बारे में? क्या इन्होंने आपको बदला या आपने इनको थोड़ा बदला?
इन्होंने मुझे बताया, क्योंकि यही डायरेक्टर हैं और यही ज़्यादा जानते हैं. मैं तो बहुत कम जानता था और इनसे बहुत कुछ सीखा हूँ मैं फिल्म के दरमियान, अभिनेता के तौर पर, और अपनी ज़िंदगी में बहुत सारी चीज़ें मैं इस फिल्म के दरमियान सीखा हूँ. तो यही मुझे सिखाते हैं.
Right. But going right, I'm sure. But going by influences, I think two stark things that come out of the film, which are very obvious when you first watch it, are very deep philosophical influences in terms of what you're trying to say, and extremely different, for lack
some amount of experience. And to my mind, UTV has done a really good job of balancing out different cities, different areas in different cities, so that there has been high occupancy right through the weekend. We've balanced out 100% in Hyderabad with a 29-30% in Bangalore, and we've got an average of like 65-70%, which is great. So that is the the feeling is that obviously if someone wants to watch Ship of Theseus, they're not going to say, oh, it was houseful today, so I'm not going to watch it ever again. It's the kind of film that people will definitely, they're much more likely to come the next day, because this is the kind of film actually, when you see the sort of connection and engagement with the film on social media, you realize that people are actually talking about a film. Finally, there's something to talk about. Like you said, you overhear people at dinner having a conversation about this film. So it's not the sort of film that, D-Day is full, let's go and see Ship of Theseus. The audience that comes to see Ship of Theseus is going to come and see it the next day and the next day, and probably see it multiple times because they like the film. That's my confidence in the film. So I don't feel that, I feel the houseful is a great sign. It means that there's lots of people and more people will keep coming.
Yeah. No, houseful of course is a great sign. Just because you are not on Twitter or Facebook, I have to let you know that's what was also trending. $600, the price of the ticket. Seriously. But of all the things that you've heard, Anand, and they've all been great, and congratulations once again. To what extent do you think what you set out to do in terms of the point you wanted to make through the film is what someone's response was? What was the ideal response according to you? Not in terms of, oh, that was great, or that's an awesome film, haven't seen anything like this before, but like in the case of Ruchi, she said free will, questioning free will. What is it that you would be happiest to hear in terms of the point of the film, or what someone takes back from it?
This was the idea. I mean, I'm pretty satisfied in terms of what we set out to do and what we've been able to do with the film. This there are lots of agendas with the film. There's a political agenda, social agenda, and an agenda of discourse of the kind of ideas that we were trying to trigger off. There was a cultural agenda of wanting a discourse around the film in the first place. So I think we've been able to, and also the economic agenda of of convincing exhibitors and distributors that it's possible to make a film that seems completely inaccessible to you guys because of whatever engagement you have had with your economic trends, to make a film that seems like that and will still do greater business on Monday than on Friday.
जैसे कि आपने कहा कि ये लाइफ में एक ही बार मौका मिलता है इस तरह की फिल्में बनाने का और प्रेजेंट करने का, तो कैसा रहा वो एक्सपीरियंस इसके बारे में? और फिल्म को बहुत शानदार, जहाँ भी फिल्म लगी है लोगों ने अप्रिशिएट किया है, लोगों की डिमांड है कि फिल्म और दिखाई, क्या कहेंगे?
जी, मैं यही कहना चाहती हूँ कि मेरे लिए एक यूनिक एक्सपीरियंस रहा है ये फिल्म, और आई थिंक जिसने भी ये फिल्म देखी है उसे सराहा है, उसकी प्रशंसा की है, और लोग एक्चुअली एक दूसरे को कह रहे जाकर देखने की। तो इससे ज़्यादा आई थिंक कोई भी फिल्म मेकर को कॉम्प्लीमेंट नहीं चाहिए जब लोग देखकर पसंद करते हैं फिल्म। और हम इतने खुशकिस्मत थे कि इससे जुड़ पाए और इसके जर्नी में थोड़ा सा योगदान कर पाए, और मैं बहुत खुश हूँ कि लोग जाकर देख रहे हैं और उनको अच्छी लग रही थी।
किरण, आपने मेंशन किया था इट्स नॉट एज बिग एज अ कमर्शियल फिल्म लाइक अ चेन्नई एक्सप्रेस और दबंग। हैव यू लाइक टेकन अ ओथ कि अब आप कमर्शियल फिल्में कभी बनाएंगी ही नहीं, या फिर ऐसी ऑफबीट फिल्म ही आप बनाएंगी?
जी, आई थिंक हर एक फिल्म मेकर को वही सिनेमा बनानी या प्रमोट करनी चाहिए जो उनको अंदर से ठीक लगे और उनके जहन में बात कहीं एक तरह से बैठ जाए। तो मैं वही सिनेमा बना पाऊंगी जो मुझे अच्छी लगे। अभी ये कमर्शियल होगी या नहीं होगी वो तो मैं कह नहीं सकती, और हर एक फिल्म मेकर ये भी चाहेगा कि लोग आकर देखें और फिल्म कामयाब रहे। तो हम ये ज़रूर नहीं कहेंगे कि हम नॉन कमर्शियल फिल्म्स बनाना चाहते हैं, हम ज़रूर ये ऐसी फिल्में बनाना चाहते हैं जो वायबल हों, जो लोग देखना चाहें, और जो एक तरह से रेलेवेंट हो। पर क्या ये बड़ी से धूमधाम वाली मिर्च मसाले वाली फिल्म होगी, ये तो मैं अब से कह नहीं पाऊंगी।
किरण, ऑफबीट फिल्म की बात करें तो अजय देवगन ने एक बार बात में हमसे कहा था कि ऑफबीट फिल्मों में सुपरस्टार लाइक सलमान खान, शाहरुख खान, आमिर खान, इन लोगों को नहीं आना चाहिए बिकॉज पूरा ध्यान स्टार पे चला जाता है, फिल्म की स्टोरी हट जाती है। आपको क्या लगता है, क्या सुपरस्टार्स को इस टाइप की फिल्में करनी चाहिए या नहीं करनी चाहिए?
जी, हमने एक फिल्म बनाई थी धोबी घाट जिसमें आमिर खान थे, जो कि आप शायद कहेंगे कि ऑफबीट फिल्म थी, और मेरे हिसाब से वो फिल्म अच्छी चली, लोगों ने पसंद किया, और आई थिंक कुछ हद तक कामयाब रही। बॉक्स ऑफिस में हमने ज़रूर अपना कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन रिकवर कर लिया, और फिर फिल्म ने जाके प्रॉफिट भी किया। तो ये आई थिंक उनकी राय होगी। मैं ये इस बात से सहमत नहीं हूँ कि स्टार होने से फिल्म अलग किस्म की फिल्म नहीं बन सकती। ये फिल्म मेकर के इमेजिनेशन के ऊपर है, उनके कल्पना के ऊपर है कि वो किस तरह से स्टार को इस फिल्म में शामिल करें, और स्टोरी में इनकी ज़रूरत है या नहीं, और वो ये रोल कर पाएंगे या नहीं। तो उनका स्टार होने से कम मतलब है, और उनके ये रोल करने में ज़्यादा मतलब है। तो मैं यही समझती हूँ कि
हाउ डू यू जस्टिफाई द स्टीप टिकट प्राइस? डू यू फील एट सम लेवल दैट मे हैव बीन अ deterrent to some section of the audience?
The ticket prices are determined by multiplexes. Unfortunately, I don't have a say in what ticket prices are charged across the country, and certainly I, as a cinema goer myself, would always want cinema ticket prices to be affordable to people, because as a filmmaker I want people to watch my film. On an average, I know that the ticket prices have by and large been affordable, but in places where the ticket prices have been higher than what people, I mean, I actually feel even 300 rupees is a lot to charge for a film ticket. That's my personal opinion, but that is the average price. I mean, on a weekend, no film charges less, no multiplex charges less than 300 rupees or 350 rupees. So I find that prohibitive. I do think it limits a certain kind of audience from cinema, and I strongly believe that we need to create more affordable chains of cinemas, and I would urge multiplexes to reduce rates to increase occupancy in theatres. Having said that, you look at the collections of other films and they are really big. So obviously people can afford to watch a certain kind of cinema. So it's a tricky thing. It's something that multiplexes who run it as a business know what they're doing, and this is how they choose to function. I really hope the ticket prices go down in the week, and so people can afford to watch our film, because I would hate to think that because of ticket prices people would not see Ship of Theseus, because it's certainly a film that will appeal to everybody who goes to watch it. So from what I know, that this kind of steep ticket price is in certain pockets, so I would say please find out and go and watch it in places that you can afford to watch it in.
Anand, are you an audience to masala films, Bollywood films that are made?
Certain kinds of masala films, because I think beyond masala I want some content, and I don't believe that commercial mainstream cinema shouldn't have any content at all. I would like to be given an interesting story, something new, a good experience, either through performance or filmmaking craft. So I go to watch films that are so-called mainstream films for different reasons, and certainly I like those films as well. I mean, if they're giving me something new to look out for, to watch.
इस सवाल को आप लोग पिछले कई सालों से सुनते होंगे और आंसर देना शायद भूलना भी चाहते हैं। शाहरुख और सलमान फाइनली एक दूसरे से मिले और चर्चा में है, दोस्ती हो गई, और कुछ आप लोगों की बात हुई इस बारे में, बहुत क्लोज हैं आप इन दोनों।
वो शिप ऑफ थीसिस की वजह से मिले, ट्वीट आया था। You saw the tweet?
No.
There was a tweet. Somebody tweeted saying Shahrukh and Salman are now friends thanks to Ship of Theseus. The two trending things. Twitter पे दो चीजें ट्रेंड हो रही थी. उसमें Ship of Theseus पहला ट्रेंड था और उसके नीचे ट्रेंड था शाहरुख एंड सलमान हग. तो किसी ने लिखा शाहरुख एंड सलमान हग थैंक्स टू शिप ऑफ थीसिस. तो ये शिप ऑफ थीसिस की वजह से हुआ.
किरण जी मेरा एक सवाल आपसे, आप लगान जैसे प्रोजेक्ट में आपका बार शिप ऑफ थीसिस, आपने आपको लकी मानते हो कि इस तरह के प्रोजेक्ट आपके सामने आ गए?
जी ज़रूर. मैं बहुत ही अपने आप को खुशकिस्मत मानती हूँ कि मुझे ऐसे मौके मिले हैं मेरे फिल्म मेकिंग और मेरी ज़िंदगी में कि मैं ऐसे लोगों से जुड़ पाई हूँ, आमिर से, आनंद से, अलग अलग टेक्नीशियन से, कि मेरी खुद की जो ग्रोथ है, मेरी खुद की जो जर्नी है वो और भी रिच और भी लेयर्ड हो गई है. तो मैं अपने आप को डेफिनेटली बहुत लकी मानती हूँ.